Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a pleasure for me to lead this party into this local government election. I have participated in many local government elections, but this one for me is the most exciting. In 1987, we were just holding our heads above water, facing 33-3. And of course, when we came second in a by-election, we danced for the whole night in Guayco because we had beaten the government. And of course, we had other local government elections. We won handsomely in 2013, notwithstanding that we heard that we had lost, but we still ran 8 corporations out of the 14. Tonight, as I lead this team here tonight, it is to bring to you local government reform. And it is not something that we came up with for the election like a slogan or something to win the election as we would like to. It is the continuation of a process of advancement for the people of Trinidad and by extension, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Local government reform means changing what exists now, strengthening it, broadening it, making it better to give you better governance and service for the improvement of the quality of your lives at the local level. We came to this position in the opposition because in the opposition, the PNM spends time preparing for government. We look at what the issues might be and what the issues are, and we determine how we will proceed. And if things don't change when we get into government, there are some things we can go straight to. And local government reform was one of those things. You will see it recorded in our manifesto, and you will see our manifesto being taken to the parliament and adopted as government policy. So it is the government policy of Trinidad and Tobago that there should and will be local government reform. Whether you like it or not, we are the majority in the parliament, whether you voted for us or not. The system is that because we are the majority, we are given the authority to set policy and to carry out policy for a 5-year period. So when we take our local government reform documents to the parliament and adopt it as government policy, those who are not of the PNM in the parliament in the minority, they would recognize that as government policy and they will monitor and examine and criticize and so on, but the government policy is being established by the majority, in this case the PNM. So it is not unknown to the UNC and the COP and the PP and the Alphabet, whatever they call themselves in the parliament, that government policy in Trinidad and Tobago is that the local government system will be reformed. And we detail that reforming process, arriving after a series of consultations. So it just wasn't Balize House and the PNM General Council and the PNM members who decide what this reform is going to be. Because as government, carrying out government policy, we went out to the country and conducted a series of consultations, talking to you, telling you what we would like to do, asking you what you would like to see done, saying the same things to you that we can say to our constituents, and listening to you. And that process was very exhilarating. And I can tell you there were a number of opposition MPs and opposition functionaries and activists who, when we came to their communities, they were invited to participate, and they participated fully because it was an open door policy, because it was national policy, and it is because it was for everybody and not just for the PNM. So having done that consultation, the professional people have distilled all that you have said to us and what we came to you with. And at the Attorney General's office, we are converting and almost complete the process of converting this desire and this input from you, the people. Convert that into legislative clauses to bring to the parliament to enact into law this reform that we're talking about. And this reform that we're talking about has some fundamental pillars in it, not the least of which is money management. Money management. Because it is widely accepted by anybody who knows anything about the local government system now that the biggest challenge to those who have served in the last term and the term before and the term before and the term before has always been the issue of money management. There are all these requests and expectations from the burgesses. Small money sometimes can bring about big changes in communities, bring about relief. But usually there's an issue of the availability of money, even in small quantities, at the time when you need it, for the burgesses to be serviced by those in the executive authority. And the reason for that is that the local government system as it exists now, you put people in office, you give them authority, but somewhere else away from the local government bodies, from where the corporations meet, is another authority called the Ministry of Local Government, run by the minister, who is not in sync with what is going on in the community. And you have this double post office where the Minister of Finance will give the money to the Minister of Local Government, who will give it to here, and eventually you may get 2 or 3 or 4 chances of payments. And unless you get that money coming to you in these dollop, you can't do anything but be abused by your burgesses. On the other hand, if we change the money management arrangements to allow the executive in each of the 14 corporations, you will find that you could do things to allow the corporations to have a stream of revenue on a sustained and continuous basis so they can continue to manage because they have a revenue stream. And on the other hand, we know that the revenue that they can collect, as we are saying, if we allow each corporation to do like the Port of Spain City Corporation, which is to collect land and building taxes for properties within your borders, you will have a sizable amount of money available to you. And when we give you the authority to spend that money on yourselves in your area, you will have a vested interest, firstly, in collecting that money, and secondly, in ensuring that the money is properly spent, because that is the money to be spent on you. And it will not be enough to do all that you'll be required to do, so central government will still have to give you monies. But if you have some money home, and then some money coming in, aren't you better off than just waiting home until some money comes? It's as simple as that. And that is one of the fundamental things that we will do. And we are not here inventing any wheel, because that exists in Tobago right now. The Tobago House of Assembly has been given the authority to collect all of government tax revenues on properties and other minor taxes in Tobago, and the THA can spend it as it sees fit. And then it falls to you, the burgesses, to determine who you put in the corporations or in the boroughs, because you got to select good and careful people, as the PNM does. The people behind me here didn't get selected because they want to go in office, you know. They were selected because they were available, they made themselves available. And under the PNM screening process, we have selected them as being fit and proper persons to handle executive authority at the corporations in which they are. In this case, the Sour Laventil Corporation. And we are saying to you here in Sour Laventil, as we said in Penal Debe, as we said in Siparia, if the people of Tobago have demonstrated for 36 years that bringing governance down to them has improved their lives considerably, we are saying that there's nothing the people of Tobago can do about their local conditions which you can do here in Sour Laventil and enjoy the same benefits. That is local government reform. And of course, you will be given the responsibility for the secondary physical infrastructure in your area. Not the highways passing through or the main water courses, but all the secondary roads, the traces, the drains, the signposting, you will be given responsibility for that. And when I come to Sour Laventil and I can't find my way because the corporation has not seen it fit to ensure that every street corner has a sign saying the name of the street and you can find your way without asking people, then you will know that somebody working in the corporation. And when they're not working, you now will be able to put them out of office for non-performance, because you will be able to identify who is responsible. As it stands now, there is precious little accountability in local government. We have almost 11,000 workers on the local government payroll in Trinidad. And of course, I passed through the cemetery, and it's one of my pet peeves. I passed through the cemetery this evening in Sawa, and the grass as tall as my head. You're paying people every week to clean the cemetery, but the grass is growing week after week after week, making seed in the cemetery. That is a very good idea, that some people are being paid and not doing the job for which they're being paid. The money is being spent, and even the dead is not being serviced. And because nobody being held accountable, because some of the middle managers, and I dare say the senior managers, are themselves delinquent. And if the master not working, why should the slave work? We are saying we're going to change all these things for one simple reason, and the simple reason is to improve the quality of your lives and your neighborhood. So local government will be given greater responsibility for ensuring that you have properly kept parks, safe parks, proper environment cleansing. You don't have contractors who somebody hires somewhere else. As it stands now, MTS is hiring contractors for the whole of Trinidad. Last week, when garbage nearly started to eat us in Diego Martin West, I had to scream to the corporation, and the new Minister of Local Government had to make extraordinary steps to take out from Diego Martin West 134 truckloads of garbage. And a contractor is being paid every day. Paying the contractor somewhere. Somebody's paying the contractor sometime. And they're supposed to pick up garbage Monday, Wednesday, Friday and get paid at the end of the month. If they come only on Monday, as though they came on Wednesday, and as though they came on Friday, they get paid at the end of the month, and Monday garbage meets Tuesday garbage, meets Friday garbage, and the next thing you know, garbage took over the whole place. When you are in charge of hiring and firing your own contractor in your own corporation, that will be a thing of the past. The Sour Laventil Corporation will hire a contractor to cleanse your area, and preferably one from within your area, and the one from Point Fortin will do the same thing like Tobago does. And the minute they're not performing, you don't have to wait on no bureaucracy outside here to fire them. You hire, you pay, and you fire. It's as simple as that. That is local government reform. Taking authority onto yourself, taking responsibility onto yourself, and you will be responsible for what happens in your district. And you know why you will do that? Because if you encourage worthlessness in your district, then you'll live worthless. And if your school isn't maintained because you encourage wrongdoing in your district, whose children go to the school? Because we want to give you responsibility for school districts. We will create school districts out of corporations. And your standard and your behavior will determine the quality of your school district for your children. And we will encourage volunteerism in the corporations in a way never seen in this country. The whole question about homework and what young children can do when their parents are around, what you can do to encourage them into positive things. The Police Youth Club could work with the corporation. Sports and arts, working with the corporation. We can have competitive sports between corporations. This country has all kinds of infrastructure built for and not being utilized because the organizational structure is not there. Local government reform will change that. Will change that. Right now, this morning I spent a number of hours as head of the National Security Council. I spent that number of hours with the Commissioner of Police, Chief of Defense Staff, and other agencies, discussing what we as a country would be doing with respect to community policing. In local government reform, we will give the corporation a role in policing your community. And it is agreed across the board that community policing is something that we must pursue to bring the police and the community closer together, working in harmony to bring about that sense of security on the streets in your district. If we have 100 on the payroll and maybe a number of volunteers, we could have a force that increases the patrolling of your area. And that would be to the benefit of establishing a greater sense of security and comfort. There's a tremendous absence of security in Trinidad and Tobago. Initially, we were saying that it was too many guns on the street. Now maybe that tiring people, they're killing you now with knife, they're choking you to death, they're killing you with stone, they're drowning you. Everybody wants to kill everybody in this country. But at the end of the day, we have to admit that those who are doing that sort of thing, they are in the minority. And the vast majority of people are decent, law-abiding citizens. Get involved. And you get involved through your community structure. So local policing would be an integral part of local government reform. Social service delivery. We are going to have you know who within your district, the central government, will establish the guidelines as to who should access what aspect of social services. And once the central government establishes that, whether it is for aged and infirm, housing grant, food card, those sort of things, you in the district, you will know, and we expect that you will be honest and you will be policed and you will be monitored and you will be dispensing those services in your corporation. And I tell you something else too. The arrangements would be such that you would have to show and keep a record of what you're doing with this money. And you would be audited by the competent authority. And we will allow the parliament to have a role to come instantly into the corporation at any good time and have parliamentary committees call members of the executive before the parliament and question them on television in real time, asking them about what happened last month and last week. Not getting reports from local government 5 years or 8 years after the money has been spent as pertains now. What is going on now? What is standard? What is normal? Is that no local government report ever comes to the parliament under 3 years, sometimes 5 years, as much as 10 years. By the time the report comes, even those who are printing the report know they're wasting paper and wasting people's time. So therefore, we're going to put new systems in place so that when somebody comes in real time and they see something wrong in real time, they could take action in real time and people will be held accountable in real time. Local government is for real. You see, I have a passion for the young people in this country who would have demonstrated time and again with a little bit of leadership, positive guidance. We have such a tremendous talent pool in Trinidad and Tobago. Go and look at the world map and try and find our country. On any scale, we are a tiny country. But we are a country that went to the Olympics many times, held Olympic record, got Olympic goals, and every time we're in contention. We produce world-class cyclists. We produce world-class runners. We produce world-class boxers. We produce world-class intellectuals. And not to say we didn't produce world breakers, record breakers in cricket and some of the best football teams in the Caribbean. We produce them. When we go back to sport, that same reservoir of talent is there, and we have better facilities now than we ever had in the history of this country, and we have to use them to tap into that pool. And today, if we find one Wendell Motley to run like a man that ran before, every Kishon Walcott is worth millions of dollars by telling the world who we are, selling ourselves through our prowess. And of course, we have a young lady now called Manifa Seeley, who is out there trying to get her PGA card as a female professional golfer. Those of you who know what golf is on the world stage and know what it is to have a PGA card to play in the professional tournament, if Manifa ever gets her PGA card, she would be the first female in the Caribbean to ever have played professional golf in the world. And where we spend millions of dollars to sell our country, if we get one player on the world stage, well, Steve Names was there, but he played for Canada. The government is supporting Manifa, hoping that one day, very soon, she's very close, if she gets her PGA card, that would be a sales pitch for Trinidad and Tobago. But let's have competition. Let's have competition. Look at what happened with Tobago. Olympics before the last one, little Tobago cannot even be found on the map. Had a huge contingent in the national team, was the largest body of sports persons in the national team qualified for the Olympics, come out of Tobago. And if we have proper competition and the amount of money government spends on sport, a lot of it is wasted because it is not properly organized. And I'm telling you now, it is this government's intention to have a serious look at the sports company of Trinidad and Tobago and to break up that expenditure, bring it into local government, and give the sports persons, organizers, and athletes the opportunity to bring forth that talent that we're looking for. Whether it is Monica Seeley or the next Brian Lara or the next Ian Bishop, from Togo to Tobago to St. James, we have talent in this country. We are spending a lot of money. We are spending far more money than Jamaica. We are spending far more money than Barbados and Bahamas on sport. But a lot of it is misdirected because the structures to make full use of the money is not there. Local government reform will give us that opportunity for the local authorities to have a more involved hand in raising the youngsters within your corporation borders. And if by now you haven't got a flavor for what we're talking about in local government reform, let me put it simply. We're giving you the opportunity to be the best you can be by behaving the best that you should behave. That's what local government is about. But by the same token, the system will have proper audits, proper checks and balances, and serious consequences for wrongdoing, because we are the land of the smart man. And I dare say the smart woman, because the women are kind of catching up. Everybody here feels that they have an entitlement to something that don't belong to them. But there are consequences that ought to apply if you mishandle government assets and government resources. But we have the potential, even in our reduced revenue arrangements now, we don't have the amount of money that we used to have 5 years ago coming in every year. But that does not mean that what we're having now, in fact, it does mean that we must be even more careful now in what we spend and how we spend it, because we have less to go around. And if local government reform wasn't on the table to give you the benefits of what I'm outlining, then we would have had to invent it, because the circumstances are now demanding that we manage our affairs better. And you would think that something like this, which has been talked about for decades in this country, being brought to fruition now by government policy and action being taken. I'm not talking to you about what we intend to do. I'm saying what we are doing. Soon after this election, after Christmas, we go into Parliament with the law to pass it into law, and then we'll put transitional arrangements in place. And the opposition leader says that we talk in local government to get votes. Now, why does a politician hold out a policy and carry out a program? Isn't it to satisfy the needs of the citizens? And if we satisfy you with what I've outlined there, shouldn't I expect you to vote for good and for better and for progress in this country? Well, let me tell you something. I've been watching the opposition's response to the country's move towards local government reform. And I'm not surprised. But it is pitiful. They don't have what it takes to say something good is going to happen in the country, especially something that they have talked about a lot from opposition, because they spent most of their life in opposition. And they always talked about local government because it is only in local government bodies that they usually have some say. And for decades, they have been talking about local government reform. When they got a bite at the cherry of running the country under the NAR, they jumped out of the government very quickly and left the rest of the NAR, but local government reform was part of that period. And the NAR did attempt to bring about local government reform, and it advanced the process to the point where we now have not St. George East and St. George West and St. David and St. Patrick. We have the Diego Martin Corporation, the Sawal Aventil, because they created the corporations which we are now using. And we are now saying we are going the next step, which is to give these corporations more authority and more autonomy for the responsibility we think they should have. It should be easy for anybody who supports this country, who wants good for this country, to identify with that. Because as I said before, this is not a PNM thing. It is Trinidad and Tobago, and in this election, a Trinidad thing, all of us from every political persuasion. So when you hear this nonsense talk that the PNM is talking about local government reform because we want votes, the answer is yes, we want your vote because we want you to support local government reform because local government reform is good for Trinidad. What you have to watch is those who don't want it and suddenly don't want it and want to find out why they don't want it. And the next thing they're saying, the PNM always promising and not delivering, so therefore don't take us seriously. Well, the reason why you are sitting here tonight is because you are taking us seriously, and why you're listening home is because you are taking us seriously, and we want you to vote seriously for the PNM, vote seriously for local government reform. You know, people who have never accomplished anything whatsoever, have a habit of wanting to cast aspersion on people who have accomplished. It reminded me of a time I was in Antigua, and I was invited to lunch by some executives, one of whom was a member of the West Indies Cricket Board. Brian Lara had just broken the world record and had gone on to Durham and had broken he had made 500 runs. So I'm invited to lunch from Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm beaming with pride. At the table, the conversation comes up about Lara's performance. And this imp, who was a member of West Indies Cricket Board, and I tell you this so you can understand why Brian Lara ended up the way he ended up before his career should have ended. A member of West Indies Cricket Board, watching me in my face, and telling me Lara can't bat. It's only when the wicket flat, Lara could make runs. So W.G. Grace, P.B.H. May, Neil Harvey, and all of them, they didn't have flat wicket to make runs onto. But Lara broke the world record that stood there for how many years and broke it twice. But he telling me Lara can't bat. And treated him as though he couldn't bat. You remember how they treated him? Well, maybe that's how the opposition didn't want to treat the PNM. So I didn't want to encourage the argument. So I got up and I left the table because I didn't want to choke on my lunch. But here it is. The opposition leader, who served 5 years in government, could not point to a single issue for her government or her party to follow in this election campaign, saying, don't bother with the PNM, they're only talking. We only talking? The PNM's record is a record of doing, of reform. If we start in the West, when the Americans had the base in Chaguaramas, it was a PNM government that took up the issue and got back Chaguaramas from the Americans. It was a PNM government that came into office and met education for the masses as a privilege for the few. A handful of people, children, used to get scholarships to go into school if you didn't have big money in your pocket. And when you won an island skull in those days, you were special and apart from the rest of the country. I came to Trinidad from Tobago, and knowing I must be bowing and looking in great aspirations, because so-and-so was an island scholar. I from Tobago, I'm a scholar, I'm an island scholar too. But no, the island scholar were the few who got into school, especially when the parents could fund it. Eric Williams of the PNM came and said, opportunity for all through free secondary education, and we started the process, and you produced people like Moses, like Esmond Ford, like myself, and all of you who were here. It was the PNM that did that, and there was resistance to that. Just as they want to resist local government reform now, resistance, but eventually the PNM made it happen by coming together with the churches and created a concordat where the church and the state would take responsibility for our children, and for decades, good, bad, or indifferent, better, bad, better, good than anything else, that system has worked and has served us well because the PNM got it done. And those of you who don't know our history, go back and find out how John Public ends up every year putting the children into church schools controlled by the denominations. It wasn't always so. The PNM had to fight the establishment for that, and today it is the norm. Take it for granted. And there was a time in this country When you leave town to go down San Fernando, it's a whole day to Curepe and half day down to Cuba and the next half day to San Fernando. It was the PNM that built the roads all the way. And as soon as they came into office to build a piece to go down Point 14, all hell break loose. And of course, there was a time in this country when you get sick from the minor matters. Suffering was your sentence. All kind of minor ailments bring about suffering on the population. It was the PNM that said that one of the objectives of this nation, even before independence, was to bring about proper health care. And we started to build health centers and to put district nurses to work, to come out into villages and to come out into rural areas and even the townships to bring health care, basic health care, and bring bottles of medicine. Dispensers coming around with big baskets of metal and boxes, and you got your medicine in bottles, remember? All of us drinking the same thing for the same ailment? Yes. But of course, we set about to bring health care as a delivery of improvement in the quality of life. And the PNM could do that. And of course, air transport, notwithstanding that it's cost us billions. And when they came in, man, they break record with that. But we bought an airline from BOAC, created BWIA, and up to this day, we are running an airline which we have to attend to. And when it is time to attend to it, the PNM will attend to it, as we've done before. We attended BWI, and we created Caribbean Airlines. And when Arthur Lockjack left the office and went, he left $1 billion in the bank. The UNC came into office, and within a few months, they spent every cent of it and put Cal into a tailspin. And in the last year, in the very near future, you will hear what has been going on there. But we have appointed a new board, and we have taken responsibility for air transport between Trinidad and Tobago and the world, and you will hear what the PNM does. And of course, we were Crown Colony. Cabinet system came under the PNM, and we moved on to having under our leadership of the PNM, first Premier, first Prime Minister, and we moved towards independence. The PNM took us to independence, cut ties with the United Kingdom, going brave because we always had confidence in the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And if we could have taken you out of the hands of the British into independence, then we'll take you out of the hands of current local government into an improved form of local government. We aren't afraid of that. And after we became independent, we weren't satisfied with that. We wanted complete autonomy and control of our piece of this earth, and we became a republican nation. Of course, some people still feel that a republic means you could do what you want. Doesn't mean that at all. It means that you are no longer beholding to the British crown, and that you are totally and absolutely responsible for the piece of earth that God has given us here. And we've held our position. We've held our position at home and abroad. And let me address an issue which seems to be attracting some people's attention. I noticed that in reorganizing our foreign affairs, we have moved around a number of persons. We have called home a number of persons, and we have sent out a number of persons, as is normal in foreign affairs. I see an editorial attacking me and the government for interfering with a particular foreign service officer. Well, let me say something to all of you here and at home and everywhere else in the country. I take a dim view of any citizen of Trinidad and Tobago who is sent abroad to represent us abroad and who has dropped anchor out there for 10 years. And when we begin to reorganize our business, we ask you to come back home. And you decide to go and invite other foreign countries to assail the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Prime Minister and the country, and to badmouth the Prime Minister and the government, hoping to stay out there. Well, let me tell you something. When I put my signature that you come home, then you come home, because I'm the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And those of you who want to support that kind of ridiculous conduct, where our foreign officer could go and be recruiting foreigners to lobby to remain in the lap of luxury, I'm not impressed. what you should be doing is crying shame on such a person. Because you see indispensability? I walked past our cemetery this evening and all them inside there. But let me ask you something too. Is it because we are a banana republic producing no bananas? Why our officer could do that? Could you imagine any Englishman, any American, any Canadian, any Indian could do that for the country? Your government call you home, and instead of coming home and seeing what else they have for you to do in your career, you go campaigning against the government. And you know what is worthless about it? There are people in this country who should know better, who encourage that kind of foolishness. And our standards will never rise because we are not going to. That's what they want us to believe? No, sir. Our standard will rise because we know what is right. The PNM knows what is right. And let me ask you something. Is it because I'm a low fence? You think if Eric Williams had called him home, he could do that? Or George Chambers? Or Arthur Napoleon Robinson? So why you feel that under my government you could be called home and you could be doing that? Well, I read the editorial and I'm unmoved. Because this PNM government serving the people, we are a mighty force and we do what is right. And let me warn you, those who want that conversation, let me just remind you all, those like myself who hold authority like me in these places, sometimes we have a little more information than you. So don't get on your high horse, your saddle might be loose. You see, we have to get serious about our independence. We have to get serious about our country. Have you seen the election of Donald Trump in America? Have you seen the trepidation it's causing here in Trinidad, in the Caribbean, in America, and around the world? You know, one of the first congratulations that Donald Trump got, you know where it came from? Came from France. Well, the first two, one came from France, one came from Russia. The one that came from France came from a woman called Anne-Marie Le Pen. Her father was a Donald Trump on steroids in France, leading the Nationalist Party. And the French people stay very far from her. Because her father died, she took over the party. And there was an election in France, and she was running for the president of France. But the French people keep her at arm's length. She came to New York, to the same way Donald Trump went to Mexico to boost himself in the campaign. She came to New York in a similar manner, trying to use the trip to boost her image because she was running for the president of France. When she came to New York, every ambassador in New York turned their back on her, except one. The ambassador to the UN of Trinidad and Tobago. He accepted an invitation to lunch. For a plate of food, he sell out our self-respect. And we gave her an audience in New York. Everything that is bad about Donald Trump, she's 1,000 times worse. But she had lunch with a man who today sits in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago as the Member of Parliament for Naparima. And in the Parliament, you heard tonight what they have been publishing about Minister Imbert and Minister Khan. And they're asking questions about this. Well, they're asking questions of me too. They want to know who's living in the Prime Minister's house. They want to know everybody's name. They want to know who's driving in this car. And as I came here tonight, they were tallying up how many rolls of toilet paper we have used since we went in there in December. But we can answer every question they ask because I have nothing to hide. So your opposition is not interested in local government reform. They're interested in who sleeping in the Prime Minister's house. But let me tell you before you answer in Parliament, my wife my daughter, my son-in-law, and my grandson, and anybody else who I invite as my guest sleeping in that house. And I could tell you, it is not a bordello, it is not a brothel, it is the State's house for the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. So all they keep asking questions. And they want to know who driving in PDM, whatever. Well, I didn't ask for anything when I went to that house. The security agencies provided what they thought the family should have. And if I'm in a car, and my wife is in another car, if my daughter comes and will take us somewhere else, I am sure you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, know what I am entitled to and what I am not entitled to. And they could ask as much question as they want. I will answer everyone. I hope they could answer what is asked of them. You know what I saw today? I saw the bills today. I saw the bills today for one Diwali function held at the Prime Minister's residence under Kamla Prasad Bisesa. It was $1.67 million. That would have covered the cost of our celebration for Diwali, for Eid, for Emancipation and Christmas. So if they want to ask questions, I hope they could answer questions. But what I'm telling you this, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because an election is around the corner. And I want to ask you in Trinidad and Tobago if you're mad to have put them out last September and bring them back this November. Are you crazy? And when you thought they had learned their lesson, having been rejected in the way they have been rejected, and they would have gone to the vineyard or to the woodshed and put sackcloth and ashes and learn from their experience and come again sometime if you would have them. The minute they saw an opening as they thought there was an opening, you hear, are bringing back Anil. Anil. But why should that surprise you? I saw all of you being surprised that Anil was coming back. Because he expects to come back. Because when there was this tape on What About the Place, everybody heard the voice, everybody saw the person. The only person who didn't know who that person was Anil and his friend Kamla Prasad Bisesa. And of course, when I filed the motion about live sport in the parliament, she, senior counsel, was sitting right below Anil and advising Anil what to say in the parliament when he was being called to account for the live sports scandal. And after he spoke for how many minutes? I think it was 75 minutes. All kind of gobbledygook. When he was finished, two of them shouted, "Great is long live live sport." That was the end of the debate in the parliament from Anil's presentation. Long live live sport. Well, all those who died in the program didn't live that long. Because when the matter came out in the public domain, one of them was killed in his bed because he was a potential witness. You remember that story? When we say live sport, we ain't talking about player sport, but life and death. And Dana Sitahal is still dead. But the opposition leader wants to bring back Anil and has the temerity to be taking issue with the people that I appoint to the cabinet, who you elected and who we selected, and as we shift them around to give a better fit in the governance delivery, she's taking issue and is saying that we are incompetent and don't have talent, and I am shifting around jokers in the pack. Let me give you her top 10. In fact, I think it's more than 10. I'll give you her top 12. The worst MP that ever occupied a seat in the parliament was Chandra Sharma. Remember him? Nice fellow that he is. Sharma, he was one of her stars. Had about 4 or 5 portfolios in her term. There was one called Nan Ramgulam, who was her teacher at Arthur Lockjack. And it was a season for teacher. There was also another one called Cornelius Batiste. And there was the famous Laventilian called John Sandy. And there was Anil Roberts. And there was Stephen Cadiz. And there was Brent Sanko. And there was Herbert Volney. And there was Mary King. And there was Chrislyn Moore. And there was Delmon Baker. And of course, item number 12 was Prime Minister acting Vernella Allen Toppin. That is only a piece of Kamla Prasad Bisasa cabinet, you know. Which one of my ministers will you trade for this whole pack? So you understand why I'm not taking any advice from her? So local government is in the air. Local government is the issue. Her issue is ministers' wives. Well, if you don't have any confidence in your spouse to conduct any kind of business that is legal, that is your business. I have tremendous confidence in my spouse. And let me tell you all something. It was because my wife bought a piece of land in Tobago and paid a contractor $3-point-something million to put a road through it and sold a few lots that I had to go before a commission of inquiry and integrity commission and had to go to court to save my name because Ganga Singh came to the parliament and said that Emily Lass was thieving sand and gravel and bricks for me in Tobago. Remember that story? It was Ganga Singh of the UNC led by Kamla Prasad Bisesa and others. And of course, at the end of the day, there are some people who don't want to hear the truth. As far as they're concerned, what sounds good is the truth. So if Mr. Imbert today is telling you that all that you are reading there, that as Minister of Finance, he sent money to pay his wife, is a lie, you ask yourself, of all the things happening in this country, of all the issues for this campaign, why is that lie the campaign of the UNC in 2016? You know why? Because they have no truth to tell. They can tell no truth that is damaging to this government. They can tell no truth that is damaging to me. But what bothers me is that this lady came into office with the support even of some PNM members. Because we lost seats in some constituencies because some traditional PNM supporters voted for the UNC in 2010. But that is their right. Because the country welcomed the first woman prime minister, and I, as father of 2 daughters, I am pleased that in my country, a woman is not denied the highest administrative office because of her gender. And we accepted that. It is not our fault that she made a mess of it, but I'm seeing something now which I find quite disturbing, and it's an argument from her that if a contractor is a woman, it somehow is something improper. So a minister's wife who is involved in contracting, and we do have 2 ministers whose wives are involved in contracting, apparently because they are women and because they are wives, she is saying they must not take part in the commerce of this country. Well, let me tell her something, and all of you who want to support that foolishness. I represent the PNM leadership. Imbert represents the PNM in office. We are the PNM, and we advance women right up to the very top in this country. We have women on a pinnacle in this country, and there's nothing in this country that is good for men that ain't better for women. Right? It is the PNM that gave women the position of equality and equity in this country. There's no job in this country where the salary for a man is X and a woman is half X. America is still fighting for equal pay for men and women. We've gone past that since the beginning of the PNM. And to hear a female prime minister taking issue with women who have come into business is quite disappointing. My wife is a lawyer, and she earns good money, better than me, who working all day, all night in the public domain for pittance. And when she invested that money in one piece of land as a little project, I had to go through hell from Kamala and Kanga Singh and the UNC. But at the end of the day, I am here and she's there. Because you see, people of this country, on every occasion that the people of Trinidad and Tobago have been invited to come down on the side of decency, you answer the call. To come down on the side of hard work, you can answer the call. To come down on the side of reason and fairness, you answer the call. And on this occasion in 2016, you are being invited to come down on the side of common sense, good governance, and of course, an opportunity for an improvement in the quality of life. And I have every confidence that come November 28, 2016, you will not treat this as any ordinary local government. You will treat this as a special local government election, because we are doing something special and you're on board with us. And I want to say to you, wherever you are in Trinidad and Tobago, wherever you are in Trinidad in particular, where you have the vote on that day, because this is a Trinidad issue. Whoever you voted for before is not important. What you're being asked to vote for now is the way ahead and the way forward. And the PNM has a plan which is in operation for local government reform. Tonight I want to thank Mrs. Carmen Robinson-Regis for the work that they've done. And Minister Franklin Khan, who even as he's now Minister of Energy, spent 1 year doing the groundwork and laying the foundation for this reform. I want to thank Mr. Anthony Roberts, a very experienced local government person. As chairman of the Sour Laventil Corporation, he put his shoulders to the wheel and he gave of himself. And all those who worked with us, the public servants, and those of you who made contributions in those consultations, your time has not been wasted. The time for local government reform is now. And for the young people who have been qualifying themselves in what we, the PNM, did when others thought it couldn't be done, in the universities, in all the schools, the tertiary education centers. You have prepared yourself. Many of you are in OJTs now, underemployed, frustrated. Local government reform holds out the opportunity for not all of you, but for some of you, to have jobs, good jobs, and to make your fullest contribution to national development. Local government reform is for you. We in this country used to have to wait until somebody go to London and appears as though by magic or by superior cerebral power, come back with a degree, because they went to Oxford or to Cambridge, and they come back, and some of those lawyers came back fooling us that some special place called the Inner Temple Bar, and they were called to the Inner Temple or the Outer Temple or the Sanctuary to be a lawyer. Some of them is glorified fireside lawyers, you know. But they were called to the Inner Temple Bar, and we were so impressed. Eric Williams changed all that with the PNM support and your support. We converted the Imperial College of Tropical Agriculture to the University of the West Indies and produced generations of the best of our people. Today we take it for granted. They're up there by the thousands wanting to participate in a new structure, in a new offering. And then when UWI couldn't do all of it, we created, and I was pleased to be a part of the cabinet that took the decision to create the University of Trinidad and Tobago, which is holding its own today as one of the best of the regions. Come on. I feel so proud when I pass anywhere from UTT and I see these young people going in and coming out bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, wanting to take part in the country's development. And we are saying to them, regardless of the external circumstances, our internal circumstances will make some space and opportunity for you. Opportunity knocks in local government reform. So tonight, parents, encourage your children to vote. Children, encourage your parents to vote. Limers, encourage your liming partner to vote. Those of you who voted UNC or COP or whatever P or what part of the alphabet last election, vote PNM this time. Focus on the PNM this time. Because we are doing something good. Of course, there are those who hope that they will have bad news to peddle. We take no pride as a country in saying that we have seen some of the most gruesome attacks on individuals in this country. And of course, on the front page of a newspaper, like somebody was celebrating 400 with blood dripping. 400 people were killed by fellow citizens in this country. That is something to terrify all of us. All of us. It's happening in Chicago too right now. There's no PNM government in Chicago. There's the might of the United States power. But Chicago has a murder rate now that is breaking all boundaries. But the opposition leader is not happy enough. It's not 400 murders, it's 438. Even that you have to lie about too. You anxious to have 438 people killed. So when the official figure is 400, on the front page of the Express, with the blood and all dripping, Kamala Prasad Bissesa know about 38 others that she alone know about. Well, I wouldn't doubt it, because maybe they have bodies buried all about, right? So I wouldn't argue with her. But the glee with which they announce it, I want to ask her tonight, what is the figure that you really have a target at for December 31st? Is it 600? 650? Because it appears as though you're only going to have a good Christmas if the number, and then they tell you crime goes up when the PNM is in office. I want to ask her, what is it that you would have done to have prevented certain persons from killing other persons? All these individuals who choose crime as the way out of their difficulty or as to prosper by, what is it that you would have done and your government would have done? The only thing is that you would have done differently is to accept that you could fool public by believing it's a matter for the Minister of National Security. So all you have to do is to keep changing the Minister of National Security and you're fighting crime. That was her approach. A whole slew of Ministers of National Security. Well, we're doing it differently. Minister Dillon is focused and is working with the people in the country whose job it is to fight the criminal element, and we'll fight them on the streets, we'll fight them in the homes, we'll fight them in the sea, and we'll fight them in the court, including those who were in government, because murder is not the only crime in Trinidad and Tobago. We're fighting blue-collar crime, red-collar crime, and white-collar crime too. We filed one lawsuit, and you heard them begging you to serve me, please, serve me, please. I never hear anybody asking to be sued. I tell you one thing. You, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, you have elected a government on September 7th, 2015, for a 5-year term. I expect that the government will last the full term. And during that 5-year term, we will do what we have to do to improve the condition in Trinidad and Tobago, because we are the government of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we'll do what we have to do in the state enterprises. We'll do what we have to do in the schools, in the health center, and in the parliament insofar as our votes are the ones that can do it. If there are other votes in the parliament that are required that we are not going to get, then sometimes you have to acknowledge your limitation. But in the meantime, local government reform is within our grasp, is within our power, and we are going full speed ahead. And 2017 will be known as the year when we begin to dismantle what exists now and to reinstall what you want as an improved condition for local government. So I thank you for supporting us. I thank you for staying with the PNM. You were red and ready in 2015. Get red and ready in 2016. And let's do this. Let's do this. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM, and it shall prevail. So tonight, I want to introduce to you tonight the PNM's team for Sawal Aventil. We have Adana Griffith Gordon, The returning Lyndon Lara. The hard-working Raphael John. The musical Franz Lampkin. Jody Johnson. And the very, very, very slim Presley Antoine. Eldon Coker. Sherwin Jones. Oh, we have Colonel Bruno the Baratarian man. Jason Alexander. Akil Oden. Dorian Winchester. And Ashmid Mohammed. This is the PNM's team for Samuel Laventil Corporation that will usher in the era of local government reform. Thank you. Vote for the People's National Movement. Put your X by the Balize.